Good evening. I'm excited to be here with you. Excited as we start the redistricting hearings. We believe that conducting hearings for redistricting is one of the most important things that the State Redistricting Committee can do. And since they have not said that they will do it, we as a group of concerned citizens and groups within the state plan to do those throughout the state, beginning this one in Middle Tennessee, then to West Tennessee, and then to East Tennessee. So good evening, and we do pray that the next one will run a little smoother than this one did. Thank you all for all your hard work.
Thank you so much. I also pray that too. Representative Parkinson is next on the program.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. But hey, I do want to applaud you for your efforts. So, keep trying. We'll perfect it, get it all worked out, right?
Right.
I just want to touch just real quick a little bit on what's happening with redistricting. I am also on the redistricting committee, and there are 8 Republicans on the committee, and there are 4 Democrats on the committee. And I don't think I have to stress the importance of redistricting and what it means to us, because it decides our representation. It decides if there will be seats added to certain counties or seats taken away from other counties. And and it's all based on the census, on the last census that was taken at the federal level.
You're not going to split a county more than once.
All right. And so with that, I was going over some of my notes from the last presentation. So forgive me if y'all hear this. Let me turn it down a little bit. Just want to go over quickly too, if I can make this happen. I'm having technical difficulties myself over here. So some of the redistricting guidelines that we have to abide by as a redistricting committee. And if y'all bear with me for half a second, let me see if I can get these up. All right, here we go. So it's really about 4 or 5 of them that we have to go by. Each district must be represented by 1 single member. Districts shall comply with the constitutional requirements for 1 person, 1 vote, as judicially interpreted to apply to state legislative districts. Geographic features, boundaries, and population figures shall be based on the 2020 census. Districts must be contiguous, and no more than 30 counties may be split to attach to other counties as part of counties to form multi-county districts. Again, we have to base this on what the data says from the 2020 census. Also, race cannot be the predominant factor in deciding the lines. However, according to federal ruling, we have to try to keep minority majority districts intact. So with that, if anyone has any questions, I'll try my best to answer some of them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see, I'll check the chat to see if we had any questions.
Okay.
It looks like everybody can hear now. That's great. And we actually have pretty good sound in here just so folks can hear you and they can see you. So I think we're better than where we were.
All right.
All right. So I think the next on the program is to hear from Pastor Freeman, Reverend Freeman. Have we just to give us a good warm welcome. Thank you so much. So we do have a question in the chat for you, Representative Parkinson. Can you explain the majority minority districts intact directive?
Sure. So those are districts that are made up predominantly of of minority populations, and those districts. So, and what can happen in redistricting, along with gerrymandering, they can cut the districts to where they dilute the strength of the minority vote that is actually the majority of the district. But because that had been happening, it was ruled at the federal level that they have to try to keep the majority minority districts intact. I hope that made sense for everyone.
Thank you so much for that. Okay. The next folks, the next on the agenda is Dr. Sekou Franklin. He's just going to go a little bit more into detail about the redistricting process. And so I'm going to slide over and let him have the mic.
So again, apologies for the technical difficulties. Again, my name is Sekou Franklin. I'm a professor at Middle Tennessee State University, and I also am working with the Tennessean NAACP. And just a real quick thanks to Pastor Freeman, Representative Antonio Parkinson of the Tennessee Black Caucus, President Sweetlove, and the other, and also Elder Jimmy Garland, the other sponsoring organizations for this event. I do want to mention, including the Tennessean NAACP and the Tennessee Black Caucus of state law legislatures, are the League of Women Voters, thanks to Debbie Gould, Civic Tennessee, Mattia Powell, thank you, Central Labor Council of Nashville, Middle Tennessee, Tennessee Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Free Hearts, which works with formerly incarcerated persons, Urban League of Middle Tennessee, and the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. I want to give a special thanks to those groups. Before moving forward, I want to make sure I do acknowledge any elected officials. We're running short of time, so I do want to acknowledge you. If you want to maybe raise your hand or put your name in the chat room to give you special thanks for showing up. And during the testimony, if any elected officials want to testify or give their comments and greetings, we definitely want to hear from you as well, if that makes any sense. I see Senator Brenda Gilmore is in the room, so I want to acknowledge her, and also work with the Delta Sigma Theta. So just to point out that every 10 years after the US Census, congressional districts, state legislative districts, and local districts, including county commission seats and city council and city councils and school boards, undergo a process called redistricting. The redistricting process entails, if necessary, the redrawing of political boundaries in accordance with population shifts and changes. This process is a constitutional mandate that is for all connected or what's called contiguous districts in the United States. They're required to undergo a redistricting process if there is a shift in population or change in population. That is a constitutional mandate, by the way, that comes out of Tennessee in a case called Baker versus Carr, and I want to emphasize this point. It is a 14th Amendment equal protection interpretation regarding redistricting. For Tennessee, this applies to hundreds of legislative districts, and it is applicable for the 9 congressional districts, the 99 House seats, and the 33 Senate districts. The different districts must be relatively equal in population and comply with the one person, one vote principle, again, as part of a constitutional mandate. And redistricting, I want to emphasize this point, is fundamental to giving people a fair chance to elect representatives of their choice. And emphasize on this point that redistricting is a critical part of the Voting Rights Act oversight, and is important in terms of addressing both 14th and 15th Amendment claims. Having said this, community participation and involvement in the redistricting process is fundamental. It is probably the most important thing that could happen in this redistricting cycle. This hearing is intended to gather community input in Middle Tennessee in co-sponsorship with the Tennessee Black Caucus. We're compiling testimonies for a larger report. And for Middle Tennessee, redistricting is particularly important given that Middle Tennessee has experienced the most population growth in the entire state. So again, thank you for showing up. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to Mattia Powell.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Franklin, for those testimonies. So we are actually about to begin the public comment period. I know some of you all have already acknowledged that you would like to speak. And for others, if you haven't acknowledged that, if you could please just send me a link in the chat And I would love for you guys to please let me know if you want to say something, if you want to give a testimony about your area, we'd love to have you do that. So with that being said, we do have some few people that have signed up to speak already. And I'm actually going to start with, is Jackie Schrago here? Please remember that we're asking so that we can hear from everybody. I think it's important, and we're already a little bit behind schedule. So if we could please keep our remarks to 3 minutes, that would be helpful. Please keep your remark to 3 minutes. We want to make sure we hear from as many people as possible. So for those of you that want to speak, please keep your remarks to 3 minutes. Okay. I don't know that Jackie is here yet. So I am going to pass it to Congressman Jim Cooper. Congressman Cooper, can you please unmute and speak?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the chance to be with y'all tonight. Thank you for holding this forum, Dr. Franklin, Mattia, everyone. This is really important for at least the next 10 years in Tennessee. It's really important at the federal level in Washington, D.C. It's really important at the state level in our state legislature. And as been mentioned, it's also important for a lot of local offices. We've got to get this right. Now, my argument is very simple. I want to keep Nashville whole. I want to keep Davidson County whole, all in one piece. And that will do more to preserve minority voting rights than anything else we could do. Because let's put it this way. It's important for folks in the Black community to be able to elect a Black leader. It's important for folks in the Hispanic community to elect a Hispanic leader. It's important for people to have leaders who look like them. That's an important principle. And until communities get to be large enough, it's important that you have leaders who vote like you want them to vote. And let's face it, Democrats are an endangered species in Tennessee when it comes to elected offices. The Republicans have a supermajority, both at the federal level and the congressional delegation and in the state legislature, a supermajority. That means it's veto-proof. Now, what we need to make sure happens is that this redistricting doesn't become an extinction event for us, because at least at the federal level, it could. In the Tennessee congressional delegation, there are now 7 Republicans and 2 Democrats. We used to have a majority. Now it's 7-2. It could be 8-1. It could be 9-0. The Republican supermajority has unlimited power to do whatever they want to do. So we've got to work hard between now and January, when they said they would be announcing it. But it could be even later than that. It could be February. It could be March. We got to do everything possible to make sure that every American has their constitutional voting rights. Now, it's no secret at the federal level, Republicans have worked very hard to suppress the vote. And they've used very tricky techniques in almost every state to do that. Tennessee used to be one of the easiest states to vote in, but over the last 10, 15 years, it's become one of the hardest states to vote in. Why is that? This is no accident. This is a deliberate plan. We've got to do everything within our power to stop that plan. So the simplest thing we can do is to keep Davidson County whole. I would like to keep every county whole, because people have chosen to live in their counties. And I know this event is taking place on the ground in Clarksville, Tennessee, and Montgomery County. Every county has a right to its voice. Now, because of the one person, one vote requirement, not every county is large enough to be a district. It just so happens that Nashville is about the perfect size to be a congressional district. It's about 767,000 people. But the Republicans want to pie slice us so that they can control the entire delegation, and so that minority voices are stifled forever. And that's our job, is to keep them from doing that in the next few months. I see my time has expired. Thank you for letting me participate.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Congressman Cooper, for those remarks. I'm remiss that I forgot to recognize and to ask Doug Himes. He's the legal counsel for the Tennessee House Select Committee on Redistricting. He's graciously joined us here tonight to just give us another overview. I know Representative Parkinson has mentioned some of the requirements for redistricting, but he's here on the call tonight to kind of discuss some of those. And I apologize for skipping over this in the program. As you can see, it's been a trying evening, so I'm trying to keep everything in track. And sometimes I'm succeeding and sometimes I'm not. So I really apologize for that. But Doug, could you please unmute and speak? And if you would like, if you have a presentation, I can give you, I think you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, no worries. It's good to see everyone. And thank you for the opportunity. And you really need to hear from, and I want to hear from the people that you have on the call. So I'll be real quick. And Representative Parkinson did a really good job going over probably what I would go over, but I'll do a quick little, here we go. Just a little quick presentation. Representative Parkinson mentioned that the House Select Committee on Redistricting was appointed by the Speaker of the House on the 25th of August. It consists of 16 members, a bipartisan committee. I've worked on redistricting since 1992. This is the first time there's been a bipartisan committee on the official committee. And I guess I should quickly say I'm Doug Himes. I'm the House Ethics Counsel and also have the role as counsel to the Committee on Redistricting. Representative Parkinson mentioned the redistricting guidelines. I'll just go through those real quickly. Real importantly, the last one, the redistricting plan will comply with the Voting Rights Act and the constitutions of Tennessee and United States. I didn't want to skip that one. And then also, these are the guidelines on the submission of redistricting plans, both the criteria that I just showed and the submission of redistricting plans information is on the House Select Committee on Redistricting webpage. And I'm going to show you how to get to that in a second. Important to note here on the submission of redistricting plans, you can draw a plan on any technology that you want to. And if you have to go through a member of the House, doesn't have to be your member, it can be any member. And it's important to note that the deadline for submitting outside plans through a legislator is Friday, November 12th at noon. You have to comply with the same things that we're doing for the House, so same guidelines that we just went over, and the rest of it I'll let you look at on the webpage. Just a quick timeline on redistricting. You can take a look at that. Again, just note that November 12th is the deadline for outside plan submission. We'll be back in session January 11th for the annual session. It appears that we may be back in session before that. We got a little press release earlier, but January 11th, 2022 is when we'll come back in the second session of the 112th General Assembly. And the qualifying deadline is kind of our loose end when we have to have this done, but the goal is always to have that done well before we get to April. Something to keep an eye on, these are the redistricting bills. They're sitting in committee right now. They're in the Public Service Committee of House State Government Committee, so they're in the subcommittee, and they're in the Judiciary Committee on the Senate side. And then finally, stay up to date with the House Committee. All notices will be on here, all meeting notices, additional information will be posted here. There's links to the members who are on the committee. There's a link to me. There's the recording of the meeting that we had on September 8th. It's all of it. You can get to all that information off of the website. And then there's a quick way to contact me or our Speaker Johnson. And we look forward to hearing from you and look forward to hearing the comments tonight. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you being so flexible. Okay, and so we started with some public testimony. So I think we have a few folks that have already signed up. Again, if you are interested in speaking, please let us know. Let me see, is Cyrus Jones on the call? Cyrus, I'm gonna unmute you. You're unmuted, and you may now speak.
Sounds good. Can I also share my screen?
I need to make you a co-host, and let me do that really quickly, and then
Okay.
you can share.
Let me set my timer real quick.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen.
All right. Nice to meet you all. My name is Cyrus Jones. I am a member of the Tennessee affiliate for the Lawyers Committee's participatory redistricting project this year. Additionally, I'm a senior at Middle Tennessee State University, and I have been a resident of Smyrna, Tennessee since 2006. Let me see. Rutherford County has been a big target for redistricting efforts or attacks this upcoming cycle due to having a 27% population increase since 2010. Murfreesboro has seen 37,000 new residents over the past decade. Smyrna has seen 11,000 new residents, and Laverne has seen 3,000. During my time with the Redistricting Initiative, I've learned some common principles, not really requirements, but of redistricting, including compactness, which is kind of having an optimal minimum distance around each point in the district. Additionally, preservation of counties and political subdivisions like cities, school districts, towns, and preserving communities of interest have also came up. Smyrna is split into, let me bring this up real quick. Smyrna is split into, well, the county split into 2 different state districts. District 13 being Western Rutherford County, and District, what's the other one? District 14, including Eastern Rutherford County and Southern districts. And then where I live in Smyrna is split into 2 different House districts, one being District 47, no, 49. If I can get into it, okay. And I live right near the border in this area, so I can drive probably 2 minutes and be in a different district. And Murfreesboro is split into about 4 different House districts, and Middle Tennessee State University is right in the center, which is right on the edge. And so most of the students that go to Middle Tennessee State that live in the county probably live in a different district than the school itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cyrus. I really appreciate that. I think Cheryl Gwen, are you on the line? If you could unmute and speak, please.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. I did want to express about Nashville remaining a whole congressional, a whole district within itself. Excuse me, I couldn't get my words out. Because of course, as all of the other my predecessors have stated, Nashville being, if redistricting is happening in Nashville, then we are diluting the opportunity for our vote. Of course, as we know, Nashville is one of the largest in Tennessee for a Democratic majority that has an option to be present. And so we definitely want to be able to keep that intact. But if we do allow for redistricting to happen within Nashville, then we are losing that. We are losing that power structure to be able to remove that supermajority that does exist, or to even challenge that supermajority that exists. And if we aren't able to keep Nashville as a whole, then we are diluting our power, and we are diluting that opportunity for keeping populations, whereas we would be able to have a diverse legislature. We would be losing all of that information because, of course, if you are separating, as the young man who was just before me was showing in his area, where if you have Middle Tennessee State University, in this separate area from where the people that were actually going to be governing them was going to be. And it's, the districts are that close. The same thing could be happening here in Nashville, not just with our universities, but with the city as a whole. And if we're breaking that up and we're losing our strength, we're losing our power. And that's the one thing that Nashville, that in order for us to in any way be able to challenge the supermajority of the Republicans that are there, that's our best defense, is to keep Nashville whole.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for your commentary. Agnes Gray, are you available? Agnes, if you can unmute and speak, please.
Hello, good evening. Thank you all for having me. I'm going to be very brief. I just want to touch on the importance of transparency in this process. In the past, most people within the communities have not necessarily been involved in this process, and we're kind of shown maps after the fact. I'm working with the Tennessee Participatory Redistricting Project as well. And one of the things that we really want to emphasize is the fact that we need to have transparency in this process, and that members of the community need to be involved in this. Like I said, it's difficult when we're kind of shown something at the last minute and told like, hey, this is what we're doing, but we're not necessarily told how these decisions were made. And we think it's important for members within each of the communities within the different districts to know specifically how the map drawings are going to impact their communities and how their interest and their concerns are going to be met in terms of this process. So once again, I don't want to take up a lot of time because I know we're short on time, but what we're really asking for in this process is just to be very transparent, in that people who do have concerns, that their concerns are heard, and that we feel as though that those concerns are really taken into consideration throughout this entire process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Agnes. Keita Haynes. Keita Haynes, if you could please unmute and speak.
Hello, I am Keita Haynes. Thank you all for having me. I am the voting rights campaign strategist at the Sentencing Project, which is a national organization, as well as the senior legal advisor at Free Hearts, which is a local nonprofit that is run by women that have been formerly incarcerated. And I want to speak about prison gerrymandering. In 2016, the state legislature passed a law giving local counties permission to opt out of prison gerrymandering. And prison gerrymandering, for those that are not aware, that is counting people in state and private prisons in the redistricting process. This, however, can only happen if the county governments, and in this case, the three county governments are Davidson, Trousdale, and Hickman, pass an ordinance opting out of prison gerrymandering. Many civil rights groups and other advocates have long criticized prison gerrymandering, and to quote the Prison Policy Project, it leads to a dramatic distortion of representation at local and state levels, and it creates an inaccurate picture of community populations. Although the prison population can be used for state and federal redistricting, there are ways to address this issue. And I believe that the House Redistricting Committee should produce plans, even if they are non-enforceable, but for the purpose of transparency, that includes the prison populations in the legislative districts and plans that exclude incarcerated persons. This will offer a good comparative analysis of how the prison population impacts state and federal redistricting efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. I really appreciate that. We are going to move forward with Timothy. Timothy Hughes, are you available? And if you have already and you'd like to speak, please make sure you message me or put it in the chat if you'd like to give some testimony and you haven't already signed up.
Thank you, Mattia. Again, my name is Timothy Hughes. I work with a number of different organizations, and I'll post my contact information in the chat. Among those groups is a group called the Crowd Academy, and we received some very extensive training around the issue of redistricting. And I just wanted to make sure that I made those who are on this call aware that there are some tools that are available and that we might be able to work together if you have interest in learning more about the redistricting process that's happening on every level here in the state of Tennessee. If I can be of any support as you are navigating that process, or if you'd like for us to do some local redistricting conversations or presentations in your community via Zoom or in person, my role is primarily as the Middle Tennessee a representative, but we do have representatives who work both in East and in West Tennessee who would also be happy to join you and work with you to talk about the process of redistricting. Thank you so much for allowing me an opportunity to talk tonight. I just wanted to encourage those folks who are on this call who are plugged in or who are interested in being plugged in with organizations and groups who are having these discussions around the importance of being involved in the redistricting process, of shining light on and maintaining a measure of transparency in the process. And if you are interested in simply working with organizations and groups that are represented here on the call, I can do my best to connect you with those groups and individuals. Again, my name is Timothy Hughes. I'm a representative with the Crowd Academy, which is an organization that works to help demystify the redistricting process. My contact information is listed there in the chat, and I appreciate the opportunity to share. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Timothy. Okay, we do have some people in person that are going to give testimony, and let's bear with me and let's hope that this goes well. We're going to ask you all, if you are giving in-person testimony, if you could walk up into the computer to give your testimony so that the folks here on the call can hear you. And can hear you and make sure that you can be heard. So is Mr. Garland, Jimmy Garland, are you here and present? Great, thank you so much. So we're gonna, I think Dr. Franklin is setting up the screen up front, Mr. Garland, so you can give your testimony at that computer and we should be able to hear you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jimmy Garland. I am the president of the Clarksville branch of the NAACP. I'm also on the local school board. I'm here to talk about District 7, how it's put together. It goes from the Kentucky line all the way down to the Alabama and Mississippi borders. And it don't make sense for a district to be brought out that way. When I look at the district, at the top, you got Clarksville, then it moves over to Stewart, then you move down, and then it goes around and pick up Franklin. And my surmise is that it picks up Franklin so that they can keep the person that's in that office in that office. I definitely believe that the lines should be changed, but I think they need to be changed in a more a coordinated way. I don't believe that a person representing someone in the northern part of Tennessee should have should have people down in the southern. It don't make sense. So the bottom line is, as a citizen of Clarksville, Tennessee, I understand that Congressman Green is my representative for District 7, but yet and still, I am definitely much against the way the line has been drawn for Congressional District 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. We appreciate that. Senator Gilmore, do you want to speak? Uh-oh. Okay. I think we should be, yes.
Mhm. So I want to say good afternoon to everybody. I'm Brenda Gilmore, your state senator, representing parts of Davidson County. I have a heart for all of Tennessee. So if there's anything that I can do for any of my constituents in Tennessee, feel free to call on me. I want to reiterate how important participating in the redistricting process is. As you know, redistricting impacts political power. It determines which party controls Congress, state and local governments. And it also determines whether diverse communities are represented in a fair manner. Communities of color especially need to have a fair shot at electing candidates who represent them, who will fight for their concerns. It will determine if you have candidates that will fight to ensure something as simpler as, do we have a Kroger in our community or a Publix in our community? Or do we have to rely on buying groceries from service stations and stores like Dollar General store and these other type of stores? Not to degrade them in any way, but as we know, we need fresh vegetables, fresh meats, and those can best be obtained from a full service grocery store. So what I want to ask you to do, those who are listening virtually and those who are in person, to be a champion of going back and contacting the Tennessee legislators and letting them know that we want a fair and transparent redistricting system, that we do not want any gerrymandering. We do not want Davidson County broken up into pieces, and that we want to make sure that the citizens also are involved in this process, in addition to members of the Tennessee legislators. Again, if there's anything that I can do to assist, please feel free to call on me. And while I have the floor, I want to publicly thank the League of Women Voters, the Tennessee Conference of the NAACP, Civic Tennessee, Central Labor, Free Hearts, Tennessee Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Tennessee Black Caucus, Tennessee Immigrants and Refugee Rights Coalition, and the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. Thank you also, Ms. Tia, for moderating, and Dr. Sekou Franklin for all that you do for this state. I appreciate the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Gilmore. Rose Ponce, are you in person or are you virtual? Is Rose here? She may be virtual. I thought I saw. Nope. Okay. Paco? Paco Harvard, I believe you are virtually. If you could unmute and speak, please.
Yes, good evening. How's everybody doing? I see the devil's getting his due, getting everything confused this evening, but that's all right. We got somebody that can straighten it all out, right? I'm president of the Murray County NAACP, and right now we are split within two different districts, the 7th Congressional District and also the 4th Congressional District. And the thing about it, we don't need our county split any further, because for one thing, we would like to have it all converge into one district. Like Brother Garland was saying, he stretches from the Kentucky border to the Alabama line. And we're sort of over to the lower left of them. because Murray County is split right in almost in half by the 7th and the 4th congressional district. And we know that right now we're continuing to grow because we've gotten over 10,000 or more new residents that has just came within the last 10 years. And so we know that it's really pressing that we get this thing done, because when it goes to dealing with those federal dollars and dealing with the elections, funny things happen when you least expect them. And we've heard rumors that supposedly there might be a new congressional seat getting ready to come open with this. And so that's why we're trying to raise our concerns now, not only with the congressional seats, but also on a local level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your testimony. I believe that we have exhausted the list of people that have signed up so far. I'm actually going to swing through the chat. I know that there's been a lot of conversation and questions happening, but I do have a quick question, for people to be thinking about. And if you would like, if you'd like to speak on these questions, you can post it in the you can pop it in the chat, or if you raise your hand, we'll call on you. But before I do that, we did get another gentleman that would like to give a testimony. Braxton Coleman, if you could unmute and speak, please.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me right now? I don't know if it's working right now. So,
We can hear you.
sound great, man. All right, hi. Sorry, I'm actually waiting for speaking, but someone brought up prison gerrymandering, and I've actually been doing a lot of research over the past few weeks. And but I'm waiting on the my documents to load. So if you want to speaker beforehand, well.
Braxton, are you still there?
Yeah, I was saying I was still trying to wait. I had documents that I was trying to show, but I was gonna see if there was anybody else wanted
You want me to come back to you?
Yes, please. While uploading.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Okay. Well, while we're waiting on Braxton, again, if you would like to give testimony, please feel free to to put it in the chat and let me know. Okay, we have another speaker, Trinity Henderson. Please unmute and speak, please.
Hi, I can't show my face right now. I'm not at home, but I just want to say I am a student who at Middle Tennessee State University, who was in Dr. Franklin's class last semester as well as this semester too. And I just wanted to say that, all the things being said about Nashville being kept intact and the transparency, is great. But there's so many ways that you can really just push this effort by, for example, writing op-eds and drawing maps and monitoring meetings. And I just wanted to say, the reason behind this effort is to preserve communities of interest. Well, one of the reasons where residents have similar political interests that don't necessarily coincide with the city's interests. And I think somebody said it earlier, that this leads to a continuity of representation. So when you are making the effort, just be prepared to fully explain yourself, because there's so much to it. And I would just like to, I guess just reinforce just to be ready to offer the knowledge that you have in those various ways by op-eds, drawing maps, monitoring meetings. There's just so many things to go about it with. So I just wanted to add on that 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Trinity. Braxton, I believe you are ready to speak now.
Yes. All right.
Share your screen. Is that what you're hoping to do? Because I need to give you access to that.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, so like I had said, I've been conducting a lot of research after I had seen that Trousdale had seen the most growth over the past decade. And it was just very interesting to me because I'd also heard about, of course, that their prison had seen a huge spike in COVID cases over the past year. And so I recreated the map showing the growth of Tennessee counties. As you can tell, the biggest growth is surrounding Davidson County due to the increase of tourists and transplants. But there's also another little spurt around Bledsoe County. And coincidentally, the two prisons that have opened up in the past decade are in Trousdale and Bledsoe County. And so if you look in the next slide, the location of the largest prisons are in these two counties. And coincidentally, they have also seen the largest spike in population growth. And so if we start looking at the numbers even more, you'll notice that the amount of growth, so like Trousdale County, it grew by 47%, almost 3,800 people. Well, it's almost entirely due to the inmate population who are unable to vote, which is over 2,000. It gets even worse when you look at Bledsoe County, because Bledsoe County grew by 2,000 people, but their inmate population that opened in 2013 is 2,300. So inmates who are unable to vote account for the entirety of Bledsoe County's population growth, which is going to lead to redistricting, giving more political power, giving them more state funding and things of that nature. So when we're talking about prison gerrymandering, we need to look at those numbers and also start bringing that to their attention. And so what Ms. Haynes was saying is really vital. It should be looked at more, because when you look at the numbers, it's almost ridiculous and insidious what's going on with this prison building.
Thank you so much, Braxton. Mr. Carter, would you please unmute and speak? Mr. Harold Carter?
Yes, thank you, Natalia. I wanted to talk briefly about the 8th congressional district that is now occupied by Congressman Gustav. We have the other district, has been mentioned, the 7th congressional district, which comes down into rural West Tennessee. We need to try and create a district that is totally inside, that 8th district totally inside of rural West Tennessee, and we can do it with a different makeup and drawing of the lines. The state Senate race position, which is occupied by Senator Ed Jackson, goes from Madison County all the way up into Lake County. And we have other different metrics of representation. African Americans make up a decent part of rural West Tennessee. This is where a lot of African Americans live throughout the 20 counties in rural West Tennessee, 21 counties. And we don't have an opportunity and a chance to vote for the person of our choice because they have it so gerrymandered. Gustav lives in Memphis. Most of his backing is in Memphis, but he comes out into the rural areas and soaks up all of the opportunities for people who have a decent candidate for public office. We would like to see that looked at and changed if we can. So we'll bring forth some ideas about that as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carter. I really appreciate your time and information. I'm actually going to pass it over to my partner in crime here, Ms. Debbie Gould, who has been patiently up front and has been helping as we try to figure out all our technical issues.
Thank you. And I'm with the League of Women Voters. And first of all, I want to applaud everyone who has stayed on this call despite the technical difficulties. And I think it shows the level of interest that Tennesseans have in this whole redistricting process and the importance of getting it right, because it impacts so much over the next 10 years. And recently, you all may have read a story in the newspaper about Bristol, Tennessee. Bristol, of course, splits over into Virginia, the town split. And there's a horrible landfill on the Virginia side, but the odors keep wafting over on the Tennessee side. And this has created some problems. And as Tennessee Senator Lundberg said, we have two city councils, 2 police forces, but 1 smell. And I think we ought to think about that kind of example as we think about redistricting, which is what are the issues that affect your community that would be better resolved if there was only one representative, one elected representative who was paying attention to everyone who had that problem. And so if there's someone who'd like to think about that and respond with some comments, that would be great. Or if you'd like to just put some things in the chat that sort of makes you think about some issues that you know about firsthand that you'd like to see resolved.
Does anybody have any thoughts about that question that they would like to either come off mute and speak about, or pop it in the chat? Do you have any issues where you feel like the representative that represents you currently may not necessarily be the best person to represent you because they are not connected or part of your community? Anybody? Does anybody have? Yeah. We have a couple of folks in the chat, so we definitely have to got to address the issue of gentrification. Well, while you guys think about that question, I'm actually going to pass it over to Jackie Shrego. Jackie, I believe you signed up for public comment. Can you unmute and speak, please?
I think my comment is that I think if anybody has played around with the way in which they've been drawn, there's no doubt that there are numerous ways to do it. And many of the problems that we see right now in Tennessee could be resolved. Memphis could be its own within the guidelines. So could Davidson County. And if we did those two things, I'd like to know, because it would mean that we would still have very sizable districts when we put a lot of rural districts together. It would help, I think, for us to understand, for those of you, especially in the 8th, where you're scattered from one Tennessee border to the other, or maybe all 3 borders, what that would do for you if you took Memphis out and took Nashville out. I don't know whether we could in any way make that happen, but it seems to me we need to understand that one possibility is that you really could. The cities are big enough, but that I don't know what that does for rural areas. It would certainly make you in the same district as the person from, I think, Murray, somewhere in South Central was saying. And I would appreciate hearing some comments from the rural counties on that issue.
Thank you, Jackie. We did have a question, and I'm not sure who's the best person equipped to answer it. I don't know if Dr. Franklin, if you can answer it, or Doug, if you're still on the line, if you would be able to answer this question. But it's from someone here in person, and they want to know how does Fort Campbell play into redistricting? Dr. Franklin, can you answer that question? I think Mr. Himes is no longer on the call. So the question was how does Fort Campbell play into redistricting?
I think I can answer that question. That typically when the census is taken, then you count populations where they are. There are a few exceptions. If a person is, I hope I'm going to get this correct. If a person is at Fort Campbell on a temporary basis, let's say 6 months, and a home residency is, say, for example, Houston, Texas, then I think, if I'm not mistaken, there may be some exceptions, but someone else may have some. It's called a usual residence rule that gets mixed up in the census process, and there are exceptions made for people who are contract workers and people who are in the military. But if your residence is Fort Campbell at the moment of the census, and that is your actual residence, then your population is counted as a member of where Fort Campbell is, or if it's Montgomery County. And as a consequence, when the redistricting process is done, then it counts that population where they are, so to speak. Does that make sense at all?
Yes.
Yeah, but this gets into a very complicated space of what's called the usual residence rule, which deals with people who are in prison, people who are contract workers, like, say, for example, they may be from Nashville, but they go overseas for a 6-month job, and people who may claim residence in one area, but for example, they're in the military, they go live somewhere else for 3 months, but they still have home residence somewhere else. So the usual residence rule applies differently for the different populations.
Thank you so much, Mr. Franklin. That was a great question. Does anybody have any more questions that you'd like to ask while we have wrapped up speakers? You know, we don't have anybody else signed up. So if you actually want to speak, please let us know. If you have any questions about the process, about redistricting, now is the time to ask them. So we have another speaker, Dr. Krista Martin. Could you please unmute?
Good evening, everyone. I am currently serving as Vice Mayor of the City of Columbia in Maury County, and just wanted to comment on that rural part of Tennessee. We are Southern Rural Middle Tennessee, and in the last redrawing of lines, our concerns were that there was a definite pie slice made, and as our NAACP president, Parker Havard, said, we have that pie slice that separates us into the 7th and the 4th districts. We are very, very concerned about that. We haven't been able to recover from that. Maury County did grow by 24% this time to over 100,000, and the City of Columbia did grow by 20% to over 41,000. So there are some concerns there. We're going to have some major adjustments to be able to position our city wards and our county districts. So definitely concerned, and any support and help we can get here in Maury County, Columbia, Tennessee, we certainly would like to have that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So we have, I think that was our last speaker. I want to give people, anybody else that has, do we have 100 folks on the call? So I feel like other people may have things to say. So if you do have something to say, speak now. I'm not going to say forever hold your peace, because we hope that you do. If you don't speak now, that you'll speak later in some other form or fashion. But if you are interested in giving any type of public comment or talk about your area and what redistricting means to you, or what you'd like to see out of your district, we'd like to hear from you now. As we all know, this happens every 10 years, and it is really important for us to make sure that we are, paying attention and getting involved. I have a question from Mr. Bath, and I don't know if there's an answer to this question, but he's mentioned in the comments. Would you like to get off mute and just ask your question, or speak to what you put in the chat, Mr. Bath? If you're okay. He said he doesn't have a mic on his computer, so that's okay. I will read it for him. It was mentioned earlier that Rutherford County is divided into at least 4 Tennessee House districts, and he's seen drawings for maps. I've seen when drawing maps for knocking doors just how bad it is. He wanted to know what the likelihood of consolidating Rutherford County is. I don't know that anybody on the call would know that answer, but I think what I would say to you, Mr. Bath, is that you make sure that you talk to your legislators, make sure that you talk to the House Redistricting Committee to make sure that they hear you and know that you would like to have a consolidated district. I think that is really important, that you lift that voice up and lift that up, that you have 4 different House districts in Rutherford County, and you feel like that the community should be consolidated, or at least somewhat consolidated. I'm assuming if you're asking that that was the likelihood for you to do that. So thank you for that comment. Do we have someone here? Okay. Yeah. We do have someone here that would like to give public comment. Again, thank you guys so much for bearing with us. This has been A little challenging, but I think we figured it out here at the end. And I am going to let her introduce herself and speak. Talk right into the camera. Oops, low battery. That's not good. Okay.
Hello, I'm Karen Reynolds, Councilperson Karen Reynolds, City Council, Ward 9 for Clarksville, Tennessee. And I just wanted to relay a bit of a conversation, an informal conversation I had with our planning commissioner about the redistricting for the City Council and probably County Commission. I reached out because I think that the maps are about ready to be released and the City Council will vote on them. My understanding is that the maps were drawn to keep as many people in their original places of voting as possible, with the exception of some very areas in our city that have a lot of growth. So I was a little concerned. I'm not so concerned. We may want to look at some of the demographics in the areas, but I did feel much better that that was the basis of drawing the maps for our community. I just wanted to let people know that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Anybody have any questions? Or again, anything else you'd like to say? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to pass it over to Debbie to close us out. And again, okay.
One more
Well,
thing.
sorry, we have one more comment.
This is being compiled to a report that we consider the lawmakers. I do want to get this on the record that we've had a significant growth of the Latino population throughout Middle Tennessee, and including in Davidson County. And so breaking up Davidson County into multiple districts could dilute the newly growing Latino population in different kind of ways. But also, I just want to get this on the record that if the House and the Senate do publish comments online, do make things accessible, they should make things accessible in multiple languages, so that it can be accessible to new Americans and new voters.
Thank you guys so much. Let's see, do we have, we just like to thank another thank you to the church for hosting this. And I'm going to pass it over to Debbie, I believe, to close us out.
So again, I want to thank you all for your interest tonight, and obviously it will be great to, going forward, that you continue to follow what's happening with the Tennessee House Committee that's handling redistricting as they have their hearings and as they start presenting maps later in the year. But I'd also like to remind everyone that there is also redistricting going on in every county, in all 95 counties in the state. And they are right now in the process of doing their maps, and you know your communities, and you probably have information about what your community needs that could be helpful to the county commission as they draw their maps. So I would really encourage you all to think about what's happening locally and not just on the state level, and make sure that your opinions and your ideas are included in that. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak before we close in the room?
Senator Yarborough, would you like to, we have a situation here, so if you want to speak, you have to come back here, but would you like to address the folks? Sure,
Yeah,
come on up.
yeah, come on up. Okay, we have one last comment before we close out.
Sorry, we had a situation, but
we had a situation.
We
Yes.
worked it out.
Well, I just want to thank everyone who's here with us in person tonight and everybody who joined online, because this is one of the most important conversations that we're going to have in Tennessee politics for the next decade, because this is a decision that shapes every other decision we make. And so it's vitally important that people here and across the state are involved in this process, are paying attention to it. And that's why we, as members of the legislature, are going to really try to get public input from everyone about how you want to be represented, what community matters to you. And we encourage you to use to submit your community map either through Civic or to us at the legislature, to prepare statewide plans, to send us emails, to email your representatives. But pay attention to this process, because this is how we make sure that representative government continues, really. So thanks for letting me be here, and thanks for everyone for taking this important conversation as seriously as it deserves to be taken.
Thank you. So thank you guys so much. Debbie, if you could come up here with the closeout, I just want to see folks to see you as well. But just thank you guys so much for this. I know it's been a bit rocky, but to have 110 people join us in online and about 25 folks here in person, what we know for sure is that this is very important for our community, and that people are really concerned and interested in this topic. There was some questions about, I saw a question that popped up in the chat about what's next. And I think that's a great question. So many of the organizations that you saw on this hosting this event tonight will be having one-on-ones and trainings and opportunities for you to get involved. I highly recommend that you reach out and try to get connected. Personally, you have your own power to reach out to your own legislator or people that you know, or the House committee, and let them know let your voice be heard about how you'd like your districts to be shaped. In addition to that, we are hosting, as Ms. Sweetlove mentioned, we are hosting 2 more of these events. The next one will be in Memphis, or it'll be based in West Tennessee. We're going to have to work out our indoor-outdoor virtual thing, so we'll have to make a determination about how we're going to proceed. But we know for sure it's going to be October 12th. It's going to be from 6 to 8. And so we will be sending out information about that shortly.
That's right. And then later on in October, we'll have one in East Tennessee. And again, everyone who's on this call, we will email you information to keep you updated, and also give you some links for some other places to get information. And as Mattia mentioned, our organizations are happy to come to any groups to talk about redistricting and make sure that people understand what's at stake, and where the best times are, what the best times are to have meaningful input, because it doesn't help to wait too long to be able to talk about it. We need to be able to do it while there's still a process going on. So thank you very much for the evening, and we will be in touch with all of you.
Thank you all so much.